Damien Carter, a young and handsome millionaire, the owner of a large real estate investment and development corporation, sat quietly by the large glass window of the airport cafe, his eyes lost as he watched the hurried crowd pass by. He had never thought he would fall into this emptiness, a dull ache that had persisted since the day Sophia left without a single word of farewell. She disappeared as if she had never existed in his life, leaving behind a void that nothing could fill. He had searched for her, from the familiar streets to the places they once visited together, but all in vain. His messages went unanswered, his calls met only with silence. In the end, he had to accept that Sophia had truly vanished from his world. But then, just when he was on the verge of giving up, fate played its cruel game once more. In the distance, amidst the bustling crowd, a woman walked with an eerily familiar presence. That hair, that figure. Damien's heart pounded. Sophia? Was it really her? Without a second thought, he sprang to his feet, rushing toward the woman. Overwhelmed with emotions, he reached out and embraced her tightly from behind, as if afraid that if he let go, she would disappear into thin air again. "You can't keep running from me forever," he blurted out, his voice hoarse with suppressed emotions. The woman froze. That moment stretched like an eternity before she slowly turned to face him. Serena Bennett stood frozen in shock as a complete stranger suddenly embraced her tightly from behind. A wave of dizziness hit her, and her heart pounded wildly in her chest. What the hell was happening? "You can't keep running from me forever," the deep, urgent voice whispered against her ear, filled with pain and desperation. Serena panicked. She had never seen this man before in her life. Instinctively, she struggled, trying to break free from his grip. "Let go of me!" she shouted, but the man only held her tighter, as if terrified she would vanish. Fear surged through her. Serena used all her strength to push him away, but it was futile. The stranger was too strong, and his embrace was too intense, like she was someone incredibly important to him. Damien, lost in his emotions, didn't realize the woman in his arms was resisting him. The sensation of holding Sophia again clouded his judgment. He only knew that he didn't want to let go. But then, as he felt her forceful struggle, a strange thought began to creep into his mind. Something felt wrong. The scent was different. The voice was unfamiliar. Damien blinked, the overwhelming rush of emotions giving way to clarity. He loosened his grip and, for the first time, looked carefully at the woman before him. His heart plummeted. This wasn't Sophia. She bore a resemblance, but her eyes were different, her expression unfamiliar, and even her voice was entirely distinct. A wave of embarrassment washed over Damien. "Damn it," he muttered, awkwardly stepping back. I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else." But Serena had no intention of letting him off so easily. Being unexpectedly grabbed by a stranger in the middle of a crowded airport had left her both terrified and furious. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and slap! The sharp sound echoed through the air. Serena's hand struck Damien's cheek with full force, leaving him utterly stunned. The pain wasn't just on his skin, it felt like it shattered what little dignity he had left. Every eye in the vicinity turned toward them. Damien stood frozen, unable to justify himself or react. "You lunatic!" Serena spat, glaring at him with pure disdain, before turning on her heels and storming off without a second glance. Damien remained there, still dazed. He touched his stinging cheek, feeling the heat linger. This situation was even worse than he could have imagined. Welcome to Soul Stories, Pooker. Life can be overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt tales to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow, means the world to us. It motivates us to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Did our latest story touch your heart? Leave a "I am satisfied" in the comments if you agree. Subscribe now and be part of a community that spreads love, kindness, and positivity. Let's make every day a little brighter together. Damien Carter sat in silence in his apartment, the glass of wine in his hand nearly untouched. The dim light cast his shadow on the bare wall, and in the suffocating quiet, his mind drifted back to the strange encounter at the airport. That woman, he didn't know her name. He didn't know who she was. yet her image clung to him like a ghost he couldn't chase away. The moment he had embraced her, the warmth of her body, her fierce struggle, and most of all, the furious glare in her eyes, along with that stinging slap, all of it was etched into his mind like an indelible mark. Damien closed his eyes, but immediately her face appeared clearer than ever. Shock and anger had dominated her expression, yet beneath those emotions, he had glimpsed something else. Perhaps hurt? Or was it just fear? A stranger, a mere passing encounter, should not have affected him this much. But the strangest thing was that Serena didn't just remind him of Sophia, she stirred something else within him. Something far more intense and powerful than the pain of his past. Damien let out a quiet chuckle, but there was no amusement in it. "This is insane," he muttered, mocking himself. Yet no matter how much he tried to convince himself otherwise, the truth remained. Serena Bennett had left a mark on him. And while reason told him to forget, his heart whispered otherwise. Damien Carter stepped into the large conference room of the Children's Hospital with his usual composed and professional demeanor, but beneath the surface, an inexplicable unease stirred within him. The Carter Corporation had just partnered with the hospital to build a state-of-the-art pediatric medical center, and today was the first meeting with the medical team to discuss the project's implementation. Beside Damien were his assistants and executives, all familiar with his cold, unwavering focus when it came to business. Yet none of them noticed the subtle shift in his emotions, a vague premonition that something unexpected was about to unfold. The meeting began. Representatives of the hospital took turns introducing the medical team involved in the project. Damien listened attentively, his gaze scanning each individual with a professional detachment, until he froze. Her, Serena Bennett. Damien nearly forgot to breathe when he saw the woman standing on the other side of the room. Clad in a white lab coat, exuding professionalism, she was no longer the startled, furious woman from the airport. But there was no mistaking it. It was her. His heart pounded unexpectedly, a wave of emotions crashing over him. Surprise, confusion, and strangely, a spark of excitement. At that moment, Serena had yet to notice his presence. She was focused on the documents in her hands, her expression serious as she listened to a colleague speak. But then, when it was her turn to stand and introduce her role in the project, her gaze inadvertently met his. Time stood still. Serena stiffened, her eyes widening briefly as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. A flash of shock flickered across her face before it was quickly masked by a composed and professional demeanor. But Damien had seen it all. Leaning back slightly in his chair, he allowed the corner of his lips to curve upward as if entertained by the situation. Serena Bennett, pediatric doctor, the woman who had slapped him without hesitation at the airport, was now sitting across from him as the lead physician for the hospital's collaboration with the Carter Corporation. Fate, it seemed, had a wicked sense of humor. After the first meeting, Damien Carter could no longer deny one truth. He wanted to see Serena more. For the first time in a long while, he felt something different. Not the heavy obsession he had with Sophia, but something intriguing, like a challenge, a game of wits he wanted to play. And Serena Bennett was at the center of that game. He found her in the late afternoon on the hospital grounds reviewing the blueprint of the new medical center. Without warning, he approached and stood beside her. "How's the work going, doctor?" "Bennett?" His deep voice carried a deliberate emphasis on her title. Serena flinched slightly but quickly regained her composure. She glanced at him indifferently before turning back to the documents in her hands. "It's fine. Thanks for your concern, Carter." Her tone was firm, polite yet distant. Damien raised an eyebrow. "Carter?" Not a hint of friendliness, not even the slightest trace of unease like their last encounter. Interesting. "Just fine." He tilted his head slightly, intentionally provoking her. Serena closed the file in her hands and looked up at him with a professional demeanor. "Can we focus on work, Mr. Carter? I don't have time for small talk." Damien let out a quiet chuckle. "Are you avoiding me, doctor?" She met his gaze directly, unwavering. "I have no reason to." Her sharp response made Damien realize one thing. Serena was not as easy to handle as he had thought. After that, Damien didn't back down. He deliberately arranged meetings to coincide with hers, even adjusting his schedule to appear at the hospital more frequently. When she visited the construction site to check on progress, he happened to be there at the right time to inspect the designs alongside her. When she stopped by the hospital cafe, he coincidentally walked in and ordered the exact same drink. When she was deep in discussion with her colleagues over medical reports, he conveniently appeared, claiming he wanted to better understand the project. Serena noticed it, and she didn't like it. Every time Serena caught sight of Damien, she would quickly turn away or change direction. If avoiding him wasn't an option, she maintained absolute distance, responding with curt answers and never allowing their conversations to stray beyond work matters. Damien noticed that she even switched seats in the conference room, just to avoid sitting near him. Once, when he stepped into the elevator and saw her inside, Serena immediately pressed the door open button and walked out without hesitation. Damien chuckled. She was actually running away from him, but that only made him want to chase her more. Damien Carter wasn't the type to give up easily once he set his sights on something. And Serena Bennett, she was unknowingly becoming a challenge he couldn't ignore. A breaking point. Serena Bennett rarely allowed personal emotions to interfere with her work. She was the kind of person who remained calm, rational, and professional in all situations. But today, everything was too much. At the hospital, a critical surgery had failed, leaving her devastated. It wasn't her fault, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of responsibility. Seeing the pain in the patient's family's eyes felt like a heavy weight crushing her. Before she could even recover, she was pulled into another storm. Relentless pressure from the hospital board regarding the new medical center project. Endless meetings, constantly changing demands, and the overwhelming expectations that came with collaborating with the Carter Corporation. It all piled onto her, pushing her to the brink. The final blow came when a colleague accused her of being too focused on the project and neglecting her patients. Those words cut deep. That night, for the first time in a very long while, Serena decided to do something she always avoided. She went out for a drink. The bar wasn't too crowded, the dim lights casting a warm glow, and the soft hum of music just enough to make Serena feel at ease. She sat at the counter and ordered a strong drink without hesitation. She drank faster than usual, letting the alcohol seep through her veins, easing the tension in her mind. For once, she didn't care about work, the hospital, or the insufferable man who had been invading her life lately, Damien Carter. But fate had other plans. Just as she looked up, a familiar voice rang out beside her. "I never thought Dr. Bennett was the type to drink alone." Serena's head snapped toward the voice, and, as expected, Damien Carter was sitting right next to her, his signature smirk in place. She rolled her eyes and exhaled sharply. "You again?" "Me again," he shrugged, raising his glass. "Didn't expect us to share the same taste." Serena wasn't in the mood to deal with him. She already had enough on her plate, but for some reason, instead of getting up and leaving as she usually would, she remained in her seat. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe she was just too exhausted to run from him one more time. Damien noticed. He studied her for a moment before speaking again. "Rough day." For the first time, Serena didn't respond with her usual sharpness. She simply swirled her drink in her glass, silent for a moment before murmuring, "I gave it my all, but it never seems to be enough." Damien wasn't expecting that kind of honesty. He hadn't thought she would let her guard down, but maybe tonight was an exception. He watched her closely before nodding. "I know that feeling." She let out a small, bitter laugh. "What could you possibly not have enough of? You have everything: money, power, luxury. How could you understand?" Damien was quiet for a few seconds before pouring himself another drink. "I once had someone who meant everything to me." He took a slow sip, his gaze distant. "She left without a word. I searched for her, only to realize she was truly gone. That's when I understood what it meant to feel powerless." Serena looked at him. For the first time, she didn't see the arrogant, self-assured man she had always found infuriating. Instead, she saw someone carrying a deep, unspoken pain. Silence stretched between them. The only sounds were the clinking of glasses and the soft music in the background. "I guess that makes us both failures, huh?" Serena muttered, raising her glass. Damien let out a quiet chuckle, clinking his glass against hers. "Looks like it." That night, in a bar neither of them had planned to be in, Two people who had spent so much time trying to appear strong found a moment of quiet understanding in each other, blurring the lines. The alcohol dulled their senses, dissolving barriers and clouding judgment. Serena didn't remember how they left the bar. She only remembered fleeting glances, broken conversations, rare laughter between two people who were supposed to be at odds. And somehow, the night ended in Damien's apartment. The room was dimly lit, the glow from the streetlights casting soft shadows across the walls. Serena felt the warmth of the man in front of her, her heartbeat racing, mixing with emotions she never expected to feel. Neither of them spoke. They simply looked at each other, as if silently acknowledging that there was no reason to keep their distance anymore. The first kiss came like a sudden storm, tearing through whatever walls they had built. It wasn't gentle, it was a release of hurt, of pressure, of emotions buried too deep for too long. Every touch, every desperate breath, every embrace, they blended together as if tonight was all they had. The morning after, when Serena opened her eyes, the morning light filtered through the curtains, casting soft rays across the unfamiliar room. Her head throbbed from the alcohol, but that wasn't what made her panic. She realized she was lying in bed, barely covered by the sheets, and beside her, Damien Carter was still fast asleep. Memories of the previous night came crashing back like a tidal wave. She shot up immediately, her heart pounding. "What have I done?" Serena ran a hand through her hair, trying to steady her breathing. This can't be happening. This was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, a reckless night they both needed to forget. But as she frantically searched for her clothes, a deep, familiar voice broke the silence behind her. "Planning to run away?" Serena froze. Slowly, she turned only to find Damien watching her, his eyes still heavy with sleep, but with a hint of amusement as he took in her panicked state. She inhaled sharply, forcing herself to regain her usual composure. "We were both drunk. Last night was a mistake. We should forget about it." Damien propped himself up on one elbow, tilting his head slightly as he studied her. "A mistake?" Serena tightened her grip on the fabric of her shirt, avoiding his gaze. "Yes, I don't want this to interfere with work, and I'm sure you don't want to be caught up in this mess either." Damien was silent for a few moments before a small smirk curved his lips. "If that's what you want..." Serena nodded quickly, grabbing her bag and making a beeline for the door, as if the longer she stayed, the greater the risk of making yet another mistake. Damien watched as she disappeared through the doorway, his gaze unreadable. She wanted to forget last night, but Damien was certain of one thing. He didn't. Damien refuses to call it a mistake. Damien Carter was not a man who accepted failure easily, and this time, he had no intention of letting Serena Bennett disappear from his life the way Sophia once had. After that fateful night, Serena deliberately kept her distance, avoiding him whenever possible. She buried herself in work, pretending as if nothing had ever happened. But Damien, he refused to accept that night as just a mistake. She could say whatever she wanted to escape, but he knew the truth. What happened between them wasn't just a reckless moment fueled by alcohol. It was something deeper, something undeniable. And he wasn't going to let her forget it so easily. Serena was already used to Damien's unexpected appearances in her professional life, but this time, his presence meant something entirely different. When she left a meeting, he was waiting outside with a cup of coffee, handing it to her as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When she visited the construction site, he just so happened to be there, asking about details no CEO would normally care about. When she picked a small cafe to work alone, he accidentally showed up, pulled out a chair, and sat across from her. Frustrated, she glared at him. "What exactly are you doing, Carter?" Damien shrugged with an easy smile. "Nothing. I just happen to like this place." She narrowed her eyes, knowing full well he was deliberately messing with her. But what irritated her the most wasn't his persistence. It was the way her own heart started betraying her every time he was near. The confrontation. One day after a meeting, Damien blocked her path right before she could step into the elevator. "We need to talk." His voice was serious. Serena crossed her arms, her expression cold. I don't think there's anything to discuss. Damien stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. You can pretend that night meant nothing to you, but I don't believe it. Serena let out a quiet, bitter laugh, her eyes guarded. Do you know why I keep rejecting you? Damien remained silent, waiting for her to continue. She took a deep breath, then met his eyes. Because I don't want to be a replacement. Damien's brow furrowed. What are you talking about? You're not chasing me because I'm Serena Bennett. You're obsessed with me because I remind you of Sophia. Her voice was steady, but there was a flicker of pain in her eyes. I'm not her, and I refuse to be a shadow of your past. With that, she turned on her heels and walked away, leaving Damien standing alone in the hallway. The shift. Serena's words haunted him. Yes, he had once thought she resembled Sophia. But what he felt for Serena, it wasn't the same. With Sophia, it had been infatuation. With Serena, it was something he couldn't explain. And he knew, if he didn't prove that to her, he would lose her forever. So Damien changed his approach. He no longer accidentally showed up. He didn't hover around her like before. Instead, he let her see who he truly was. Not the arrogant CEO, not a man chasing an obsession, but a man genuinely drawn to her. He listened to her more. He cared about her work not just because of the project, but because it mattered to her. He made it clear that he valued Serena Bennett for who she was, not because she reminded him of anyone else. And no matter how strong Serena tried to be, no matter how much she denied it, Damien could see it. The walls she had built around herself, they were beginning to crack. A love that was never meant to be. After Damien's unwavering persistence, Serena finally let her guard down. No more cold avoidance, no more forced distance. Instead, there were long conversations, quiet evenings together, and warm moments neither of them had ever imagined sharing with anyone else. They began seeing each other outside of work more often. One evening, Damien brought Serena to his penthouse, opening a bottle of wine as they sat on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. You've never told me about your family, Serena murmured, resting her head on his shoulder. Damien was silent for a moment, his eyes distant. There's not much to tell. Serena reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. I want to know. I want to understand you more. With a quiet sigh, Damien slowly began to speak. He grew up with a single mother. His father had abandoned them when he was just a child, leaving for another woman. He remembered the nights his mother cried in silence, the pitying looks from neighbors, and the cruel taunts from classmates about his absent father. And then he remembered the worst of it, his mother's heartbreak turning into depression until she was gone, leaving him utterly alone. I used to hate him, Damien admitted, his voice lower. I swore I would never become like him, never walk away from someone I love. Serena sat in silence, her heart aching at the pain in his voice. Then he told her about Sophia, about how she had entered his life like a whirlwind, about their passionate yet fractured love, and about the way she had vanished without a word, leaving him drowning in unanswered questions. I once thought she was everything, he confessed, but when she left, I realized I didn't love her because she was my destiny. I loved her because I was terrified of being abandoned again. Serena stayed quiet for a long time before gently squeezing his hand. You're not that abandoned boy anymore, Damien, and you're not your father. When he turned to look at her, he knew. Serena was not a replacement. She was the one who made him want to be a better man. That night, Serena opened up as well. She told him why she had chosen to become a pediatrician, because she had lost a younger brother when she was a child, and she never wanted another child to suffer the same pain. They shared their wounds, their scars, and between two broken souls, a love stronger than either of them had ever known began to take root. A fate too cruel. For the first time, Serena allowed herself to love without fear, but she had no idea that fate had already prepared a devastating truth she could never have expected. One day, while visiting her mother, an old name surfaced in conversation. William Carter. A strange chill ran down Serena's spine. Carefully, she asked, William Carter? What do you mean? Her mother hesitated before sighing. He was someone I knew a long time ago. When I was younger, I fell in love with a man who already had a family. Serena's heart pounded painfully. You mean he was married? Her mother nodded. Yes, he left his wife to be with me. But in the end, things didn't work out. Serena felt the blood drain from her face. Her lips were dry, her voice barely above a whisper. Did his wife have children? Her mother looked slightly surprised at the question, but then slowly nodded. Yes, a son. The world collapsed beneath Serena's feet. Damian Carter. His father had abandoned his mother for another woman, and that woman was Serena's mother, a love bound by fate and torn by the past. Serena felt like she was trapped in a nightmare. She tried to deny it, tried to convince herself that this was just some cruel coincidence. But the truth was undeniable. She had fallen in love with the son of the woman her mother had once destroyed. She had fallen in love with a man whose greatest pain was tied to a past in which her mother was a villain. How was she supposed to face Damian now? How could she look into his eyes without drowning in guilt? How could she love him when she was a part of the very thing that had broken him? And the most terrifying question, what would Damian do when he found out the truth? Would their love be enough to cross this boundary? Or was this the end? A love overshadowed by pain. Serena had never felt pain as suffocating as this. She loved Damian. She had never once doubted that. But now that love was buried beneath a bitter truth she could never undo. Her mother was the woman who had destroyed his family. The indirect reason his mother had fallen into despair. The reason he had grown up abandoned, carrying wounds no one could heal. Every time Serena looked into his eyes, she saw trust, devotion, and persistence. But she also saw the shadow of a boy who had been left behind. A boy who had suffered because of a past her mother played a role in. She had once told him, "You're not that abandoned boy anymore, Damian, and you're not your father." But now, she had become part of the past he had spent his entire life trying to escape. She couldn't tell him. She couldn't bear to see his face when he realized who she really was. Because once he knew, nothing would ever be the same. And if that was the case, she would rather be the one to leave first. A goodbye without words. That evening, Serena went to Damian's apartment as if everything were normal. But everything had changed. She sat on the sofa, watching him move around the kitchen. Every movement so familiar, so effortlessly caring, it made her heart ache. She wanted to memorize this moment, to hold on to it just for a little longer, before she walked away from him forever. Damian turned around and smiled. "You're acting strange tonight, Doctor." "Bennett." Serena forced a soft smile, but it never reached her eyes. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around him from behind, holding him tightly as if trying to burn this warmth into her soul. "I just wanted to hold you for a moment." Her voice was barely above a whisper. Damian paused, slightly surprised, but he hugged her back, pressing his face into her hair. "That's strange. Usually you'd be complaining about how much oil I'm using." She let out a small laugh, but then a single tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't know if Damian noticed something was wrong, but she prayed that tonight would only be about this, about them, because by tomorrow, she would be gone. The letter. She sat at his desk, heart pounding as she put pen to paper. Her hands trembled as she wrote the words she knew would break them both. "Damian, I'm sorry for leaving this way. I once told you that I didn't want to be a replacement in your life, but now I've realized I am a part of the very pain you've had to endure. I can't stay by your side without feeling the weight of that truth, and I can't tell you because I'm afraid that once you know, you'll never look at me the same way again. Don't look for me, Damian. Let's pretend we never met. Let's pretend we never loved each other. This is the only way I can protect you, and the only way I can protect myself. Serena." She placed the letter gently on the table. Then she walked away. Serena Bennett never thought she would leave everything behind, her career, her life, and the man she loved. But when the bitter truth was revealed, she had no other choice. She couldn't face Damian. She couldn't look into his eyes without feeling guilt. And she couldn't let him know that her mother was the reason his childhood had been filled with suffering. So she left. No explanation beyond the letter, no goodbyes to anyone, Serena packed her bags and boarded the bus, leaving the city behind. The bus took her to a small seaside town where no one knew who she was, where no one knew her past. A place where there was no Damien Carter. The town was peaceful, a stark contrast to the noise and fast pace of the city. Small cobblestone streets, rustic wooden houses, and a vast, deep blue coastline under a glorious sunset. Serena rented a small house near the beach, simple but warm. Every morning she woke up to the sound of waves crashing, the salty scent of the air, and the feeling that she was in another world, a world where she could forget everything. But she didn't come here to hide forever. A week after arriving in town, Serena found a job at a free clinic for poor children. The clinic was small but always filled with patients. Most of the children came from poor fishing families who couldn't afford to visit larger hospitals. At first, Serena only intended to work here to fill the emptiness in her life. But the more she worked, the more she realized this was where she truly belonged. The children ran around the clinic calling her doctor. Serena, with innocent smiles. She treated small wounds, cared for fevers, and sometimes simply sat down and listened to their stories. Every day when she saw the bright, sparkling eyes of the children she helped, Serena felt that she still had some value, that she could still do something good, even if her heart still carried an unhealed wound. But no matter how busy she was, every night when she returned to her small house by the beach, Serena could never forget one thing. She missed Damien. She missed the way he looked at her, the way he touched her, the way he made her feel loved in a way she had never known before. But she also knew she couldn't go back. Damien Carter deserved a life free from the shadows of the past, and she couldn't be the one to drag him back into that nightmare. So every night, she could only sit by the beach, silently watching the waves crash onto the shore, telling herself that she had made the right decision, even if it hurt her to the core. Serena's life in the seaside town continued, quiet but peaceful. She spent her days working at the clinic, helping poor children. At night, she returned to her small house by the beach, listening to the sound of the waves and trying not to think about Damien. But fate seemed unwilling to let her be. One morning when Serena got out of bed, a sudden dizziness hit her. She frowned, thinking she had simply overworked herself. But when the nausea started occurring regularly every morning, when her body became more fatigued than usual, a suspicion flashed in her mind. She hurried to buy a pregnancy test from the small pharmacy in town, her palm cold as she held it. She didn't want to believe what she was thinking. It couldn't be. But when two clear pink lines appeared on the test, Serena felt as though the whole world had collapsed beneath her feet. She was pregnant. She was pregnant with Damien's child. Are you still following the story? If you In the days that followed, Damien threw himself into searching for Serena. He hired a private investigator, checked every exit record, and searched for any trace of her. He drove to the places they had visited together, hoping to find a clue. He didn't eat, didn't sleep properly. Work became secondary. No one recognized Damien Carter, the strong, cold man he once was. Every time he heard news of someone seeing a woman who resembled Serena, he rushed to the location, only to be disappointed. Every night when he returned to the empty apartment, he would sit in the chair where she once sat, feeling the silence envelop him. She was really gone. For the first time in his life, Damien Carter felt helpless. He had everything: money, power, a successful career. But the one thing he wanted, he couldn't have. No one understood how important Serena was to him. No one knew she was the only one who made him feel like he no longer had to be lost in this life. She was the first person he wanted to be with, not because he feared she would leave him, but because she made him want to be a better man. But now she was gone. She had left him with a hole he couldn't fill. And the worst part was, he didn't know if he could ever find her again. Damien Carter had never been one to give up easily. When Sophia left, he searched desperately. But with Serena, he knew. He couldn't lose her like this. The past few months had been the darkest of his life. He had searched through every lead, from the hospital where she worked to the places she had visited. The private investigator he hired could only confirm one thing. Serena had truly disappeared, leaving no trace. But Damien didn't stop. He knew Serena wasn't the type to go on lavish trips or visit big cities. She was someone who sought peaceful places, places where she could help others. And it was that detail that led him to find her. One day, as he was reviewing reports from the investigator, Damien came across a small piece of information about a free clinic in a small seaside town. A female doctor who had arrived a few months ago with little personal information, but the descriptions of her. Immediately, Damien booked a flight. When Damien arrived in the small seaside town, he felt something very unfamiliar. It was completely different from the city where he and Serena had lived. No skyscrapers, no crowded streets, just small streets, roadside cafes, and the sound of the waves lapping at the shore. He headed straight for the free clinic. Anxiety flooded his heart. He wasn't sure how Serena would react when she saw him. Would she be shocked? Angry? Did she still love him? But when the clinic door opened, all those thoughts vanished, because right in front of him, Serena was standing there. But she wasn't the Serena he remembered. Slender, proud, always keeping her distance. Now she was pregnant. Her belly was large, clearly in the final months of pregnancy. Damien froze. Serena was also stunned when she saw him. Her face went pale, her eyes wide in shock. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. No one spoke in the first few moments, only silence, astonishment, and a storm of emotions swirling in both their hearts. Finally, Damien spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. "It's my child, isn't it?" Serena tightened her grip on her hands, her eyes wavering. She wanted to lie, wanted to say that the child had nothing to do with him. But Damien's gaze was too sharp, too pained, like if she denied it, he would break down right there. She couldn't lie, and Damien didn't need to hear the answer, because just by looking at Serena, just by seeing her round belly, he knew the truth. He was about to be a father, and Serena, the woman he loved, had intended to keep this from him forever. Damien clenched his fists, a wave of pain and anger flooding his chest. He stared at her, as if searching for an explanation. "Why?" His voice cracked, full of hurt. "Why did you run? Why didn't you tell me?" Serena turned her face away, her eyes glistening with tears. "Because I didn't want to drag you into this. Because I didn't want you to suffer from the past." Damien stepped closer, his voice low but full of emotion. "Did you really think I would abandon you? Did you really think I wouldn't want this child?" Serena bit her lip, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know how to respond. She only knew one thing. Now Damien had found her, and she couldn't run away anymore. Serena sat across from Damien in her small house in the seaside town. The air between them was heavy, filled with emotions that could not be named. Damien had not left since finding out about the child growing inside her. But Serena knew she couldn't avoid the truth forever. She knew he wouldn't forgive her if she didn't explain the real reason she had pushed him away. And she also knew that once she told him, everything between them might never be the same again. She took a deep breath, her hands clenching at the edge of her shirt, trying to find the courage to face what she had been running from all this time. "Damien," her voice trembled. Damien stared at her, his gaze filled with pain and anger. "Say it, Serena. Tell me why you left me." She bit her lip, her heart feeling suffocated. Then, as if unable to bear it any longer, Serena suddenly dropped to her knees in front of him. Damien froze. "I'm sorry, Damien." Her voice choked, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry for my mother. I'm sorry for what she did to your family. I'm sorry for being the third person who took your father away. I'm sorry for her, indirectly causing the death of your mother." Damien felt the world spinning around him. He looked at Serena, his body stiffening. Every word she spoke felt like a knife slicing deep into his heart. Her mother. The woman who had made his father abandon their family. The woman who had caused his mother to live in pain until she died. Damien couldn't breathe. He had always hated the woman who destroyed his family, always wondered how his father could leave them for a misguided love. And now the woman he loved, the one he had been searching for all these months, turned out to be the daughter of that very woman. He didn't know how to react. He stepped back. Serena saw it. She knew and she understood. Damien Carter was always strong, always decisive, but right now she saw the confusion in his eyes. He was struggling with himself. She lowered her head, tears falling onto the floor. "This is why I left you, Damien. I couldn't look at you every day knowing that my mother had caused you pain. I couldn't let you love me when that love would always be haunted by such a cruel past. Damien couldn't believe what he was hearing. He didn't care who Serena's mother was. He only knew that she was the woman he loved. He stepped forward, grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "Listen to me, Serena," his voice hoarse. "I don't care about your mother's past. I only care about you, about our child." "No, Damien." Serena shook her head, trying to pull away. "I can't let you get trapped in this tragedy." "This tragedy isn't ours," Damien nearly yelled. "It's the past. It's the mistakes of the previous generation, not ours. Why do you keep trying to push me away?" Serena broke down in tears, but she remained firm. "Because I can't let you face this truth every day," she choked. "You think you can overcome it, but can you really forget? Can you look at me without thinking about your pain? I don't want you to live in suffering, Damien. I love you. And because I love you, I can't let you live like this." Damien clenched his fists. She was pushing him away. She was sacrificing herself to protect him, but she didn't understand that she was the only one who could heal him. He bent down, lightly touching her belly, the place where their child grew. "Do you really think I can leave knowing our child is here?" His voice was low, filled with pain. Serena placed her hand on her belly, feeling the life growing within her, but she remained resolute. "Damien, I'm sorry, but I can't." She stepped back, her eyes full of despair. Damien looked at her, his heart breaking. She had made her choice. She had chosen to walk away from him. And this time he couldn't stop her. The air in the small seaside house became suffocating. Serena tried to hold on to her decision, but she hadn't anticipated that Damien wouldn't give up. He didn't yell, didn't get angry. He just stood there, his eyes filled with pain and sincerity, as if he was trying to use everything he had to keep her. And then he said something Serena had never prepared herself to hear. "Do you really want our child to grow up without a father?" She froze, her heart feeling as though it was being crushed. "You know what I've been through," Damien continued, his voice growing quieter, filled with a sorrow that only those who have been abandoned could understand. "You know how I grew up, in a broken family, with a desperate mother, and a father who never came back for me." He clenched his fists, his gaze darkening as if the painful memories of his childhood were returning to haunt him. "I've asked myself 1,000 times, why did he choose to leave us? Why didn't he love me enough to stay?" His voice broke for a moment, but then he regained his composure. "I never got an answer, but I know one thing. I grew up with an empty space inside me that nothing could fill." He looked Serena directly in the eyes, his gaze burning with an unshakable determination. "I don't want our child to go through that." Serena felt as if someone had drained the air from her lungs. She had always thought that leaving was the best way to protect Damien, but she had never thought about this, about the child growing inside her. This child would never know that its mother left its father for a reason it couldn't understand. It might grow up with questions that would never be answered. It might feel the way Damien once had, abandoned. She instinctively placed her hand on her belly, feeling the tiny heartbeat growing inside her. What was she doing? She had spent her life healing other children, ensuring they didn't suffer. But now she was taking away the most precious thing from her own child, the love of a father. A tear fell down her cheek. "Damien!" She choked, gripping her shirt tightly. He stepped closer, slowly, as if afraid she would run again. He raised his hand, gently wiping away the tear from her cheek. "I don't care about your mother's past," his voice was soft but firm. "I only care about you and our child. You can hate me, you can curse the fate that brought us into this tragedy, but you can't deny that we have something more important, a family." Serena burst into tears, her tears streaming down her face. She had been running for so long, trying to push Damien out of her life, but now every reason she had clung to seemed meaningless. Because the truth was, she loved him. She loved him so much that she was ready to sacrifice herself to protect him. But now she realized that leaving him was never the way to protect him. She had been wrong. She had been wrong from the start. Damien bent down, resting his forehead against hers, his voice rough. "Let me stay by your side, Serena." She sobbed, the tears still falling. But this time, she didn't pull away. This time, she let him hold her. The storm inside Serena finally subsided. After months of running, tormenting herself and denying the truth, she had come to an undeniable realization. She deserved to be loved, and Damien deserved to be with his family. Serena couldn't change the past. She couldn't erase the pain that her family had inadvertently caused Damien, but she could do something else, not let the past dictate their future. So when Damien gently took her hand, Serena no longer pulled away. She let him into her life once again. In the days that followed, Damien stayed in the seaside town with Serena. He put aside his busy work in the city for a while to take care of her, to make sure she was no longer alone. Together, they prepared for the arrival of their child, from choosing baby clothes, assembling a crib, to attending prenatal checkups. In the late afternoons, they walked along the beach, hand in hand, talking about the future. "Who do you think the baby will look like more?" Serena asked, her eyes sparkling under the sunset. Damien chuckled, lightly rubbing her belly. "If they look like you, that'd be great. I don't want a kid with my stubborn attitude." Serena shot him a playful glare, but smiled happily. "I just hope our child grows up with the love of both their parents." Damien paused for a moment, then tightened his grip on her hand. "I promise you, Serena, our child will never have to grow up in loneliness like I did." For the first time, Serena felt her heart truly begin to heal. On a quiet spring night, amidst the sound of the waves crashing on the shore, their child let out a cry, greeting the world. Damien had never thought he could love someone so much until he held his tiny baby in his arms, feeling its warmth, listening to its tiny heartbeat. Serena looked at him, exhausted but filled with happiness. She took his hand, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. "We did it, Damien." He bent down to kiss her forehead, his voice choking. "Yes, and from now on, I'll never let you and our child be far from me again." Their life gradually returned to peace. Serena continued working at the free clinic, but this time, she was no longer alone. Damien found a way to balance his work and family. He was no longer the man who buried himself in work as he used to. He learned to cherish every moment, from making coffee for Serena in the early mornings to playing with their child on the beach. They were not a perfect couple. They still had their arguments, stressful days due to work and family. But the most important thing was, they always chose to be together. They had overcome the past, conquered the pain, and built a future they both deserved. And on a peaceful afternoon at the beach, as the sunset painted the sky red, Damien held Serena close, gently whispering in her ear, "Thank you for giving me a family." Serena smiled, resting her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of the man she loved. In the end, they had found where they truly belonged, in each other's arms. True love is not just about happy moments, it's about the perseverance to overcome challenges. Damien and Serena learned to face the past, accept their wounds, and forgive in order to build a new future. The story shows that we can't change the past, but we can choose how we live with it. Running away is not the solution. Only when we courageously face the truth do we find peace. Family is not just about blood. It's the choice to love each other despite all difficulties. Thank you for following this heartfelt story on the Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone.